And I'm really looking forward to asking Patrick about that. But let's have a look at this unbelievable fixture and the carnival of football that is about to hit us head. 33 games in 20 days. Before we go through what's there, I can tell you that the AFL tonight are looking at moving next week's the round 9 Carlton-Hawthorn game.
So that was the first game of one of the first games.
It was the first game to kick off. Well, it was the second game. Richmond Bulldogs, I think, is on the Wednesday night.
Right.
The first in a Thursday doubleheader was to have been Carlton-Hawthorn. I think because of the short break before that game and the really long break, both for Carlton and Hawthorn after that game, I think it's something like 10 days. They're looking at moving that game, which is going to be in Perth. They're going to move that game, I think, to the Friday night. It'll be on in a doubleheader on Friday night now, followed by Essendon and Brisbane, which, of course, has been playing at Metricon.
So that game, we assume, will be on Fox Footy and the other game on 7 as normal on Friday night.
I would imagine so, and I think it makes sense. Carlton and Hawthorn are only just hearing about it now. I gather Hawthorn might have made this point to the AFL that players don't want these long breaks. And, of course, we looked at all those other issues, but your club, Collingwood, 14 days, 4 games in 3 states, an unbelievable fixture.
Yeah.
You and Geelong both they've only got 2 states, but they also have to fly and have a 4-day break when they play their next game, and they've also got 4 games in 14 days. So
we'll go through that. We'll get Patrick.
7-10, a lot of games starting for family-friendly fixtures. It's going to be extraordinary. I'll be really looking forward, Matthew, to see how the fans actually adapt
Well,
to
the
this.
7-10, I'm looking to see what the ratings are like because a few people have been pushing that for a long time.
Yep.
So we'll see how that all goes. We'll get to Patrick Dangerfield at the moment, who's actually going to be playing in it. Matt, your first reaction to all that?
Well, it's interesting that the players wanted this. The players wanted to get it over. Is that so they can get home and get the season finished, but it's just going to be taxing on them? I just wonder whether we'll get to a point where a team struggles to field 22 players by then.
For me, couldn't be more excited because I want to feast on the football and see the quality teams, and every night it's on. But the players' perspective and teams that have built this season, like Collingwood and Geelong, enormous challenge. And how they're going to respond and get through is going to be fascinating.
Well, Geelong's an interesting one, Ross. Nick Revolt spoke about the issue facing them and those 4 games, and this is what he had to say on Fox Footy.
Geelong in round 10, I think you highlight a game. You pick a game and you say, that's a game that we should win. We're going to rest all our stars. We're going to get them through.
It's a big call.
You're going to back them in.
Who are they playing round 10?
So round 10, Geelong play North Melbourne. They've got a big injury list. You back them in to get the job done, and your rest players are your stars.
Yeah, well, a lot of the sort of old wives' tales of football are going to be dispelled in the next month of football, I reckon. The time required in between games, the way that you do your recovery, the way you do your training, whether or not you start to rotate, that you use the full 40-odd players on your list rather than, what we've always tried to do. It's always been a bit of a truism, hasn't it, Ross, that if you can keep 25, if you get through the season 25, 26, you're a good chance to win the flag.
Yeah, stability is a KPI. Your best players available, KPI indicator of success in the AFL, no doubt.
Let's get to Patrick Dangerfield, who joins us from Perth. He's in the luxurious Crown Promenade over there, but even if you're there, mate, and you're locked in a room, it's still a bit tight, isn't it, at times? Patrick, thank you very much for joining us tonight. You've heard all that. What's the first reaction you have?
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me. Certainly the fixture was pretty hotly discussed last night when it first came out, but by and part, most players this year, given the circumstances, it's just been, all right, what's this week look like? We'll focus on that. And then beyond that, well, we'll just readjust once we've played the game. So I think the players have been wonderful from every club, just adjusting to the different set of circumstances, and the AFL with the setup that we have here, with the turnaround they had in order to get it rolling. The industry's just done a power of work in order for the season to go ahead. Nothing's perfect, but in 2020, clearly nothing has been. So I think everyone's just doing the best they possibly can at the moment, and it's entertaining, that's for sure.
Paddy, we'll take a look at your fixture cram at the Geelong Football Club now. As we touched on with the Pies, you've got just as challenging there. You've got the Dockers, 5-day break, and the Eagles, 4-day break, into the Kangaroos, 5-day break. Saints 4-day break before you take on the top of the table Power. I disagree what Nick Revolt had to say there, because I think what you can plan for in 3 weeks' time could change tomorrow. You lost Selwood and Ablett, obviously, in the space of 2 days. So what's your thoughts on that, as Chris Scott actually touched on how you will manage the next 19 days?
Not just yet, Lloydie, but I certainly agree with you. I think the competition's too even in order to take any team lightly, regardless of the win-loss ratio. there's just so many there's so many unknowns. You know, any team on their day when they're playing well can get up and rolling. And what we have seen is that, you know, 3 or 4 goals is you know, early in the game is really hard to peg back. So we'll certainly, I think, expose a fair amount of our list to those games. That being said, most teams after 4 days, they're going through their main session in preparation for the week ahead, whether it's a 6-day break or an 8-day break. So players will be ready. It will be really interesting to see just that accumulative fatigue effect over a long period of time. And clearly 3 weeks of footy and 5 games is a longer period. So, apprehensive, but it is what it is. So we'll just adjust and try and adapt the best we possibly can.
Well, you've had to, because you look at 10 days ago, you looked next to you and there was Mitch Duncan, Gary Ablett and Joel Selwood standing next to you. This time you're standing on your own. Ross, how do you...
Well, Paddy's capable of handling them on his own, so let's not worry about that. But I suppose what I'm interested in, you can't talk to anyone else, but you know the difference from where the game was to the minutes now and how you're recovering, Paddy. Where do you think, just instinctively, looking at that 4 games in 14 days, the 4-day breaks, where do you think you'll sit instinctively? If you could make a decision now for yourself, what would you think?
I think it's possible. I think anything's possible, Ross. Like, I think players, how professional they are now, they'll adapt and adjust, but not everybody is going to be able to react and recover that quickly in order to play. So, multi-positional players will become really important if you have the ability to play more than just one position and not rest, but have less of a taxing role in a game. Then I think it sort of bodes well. There's not going to be much training at all during that period for many sides, I don't think. I think the most you'll get is a captain's run. The challenge will be getting out of that game, finishing the game, reviewing it, and almost the next day you're trying to get into a bit of a pattern of preparation for a captain's run to then play in 2 days' time. Yeah,
it's a great insight from Paddy. I think the positional, Paddy's clearly a midfielder who can just go and play out of the square for a day, maybe on the third day. But on the screen, had a look at the rules, and basically training's out, recovery's in. On a 4-day break, it's really 3 days to recover. So typically you play the game, you have a recovery day in the water on their own at the Crown Pool, and then the Monday is what we call an acid flush. It's just a low-key jog, maybe kick the ball around in a stretch, and they do the review. And then the next day, you're looking to maybe do your first football session of the week. But with this turnaround, you're almost straight into captain's run and the match. So when you look at the selection, I think Nick Rewalt's forgotten everything I've spoken to him. Don't get ahead of yourself. But I think he made a good point. Identify...
Coming from you, who never rested players, what did you...
No, I never rested anyone. But you would... I think he's targeted North Melbourne, who have 11 or 12 injuries on the list. Tarrant Thomas is going out. Their position. But I think it's got to be a contingency approach. Address it as you get there. Is it a squad mentality? Do we play our best because we're in great shape and you trust the players' feedback? Or do you identify an opponent we think we can get over the top? Or regardless whether we lose 4 points, we don't want to risk our whole season.
And the other thing is, Ross, when you're flying in and out, so use Collingwood, for example, because that's the one we've been talking about. If you were going to rest a senior player and they could stay in Brisbane while the team went down and then came back again, that's a good rest, isn't it?
That's a great rest, yeah. It becomes a 9-10 day rest, yeah. The flying does drain you. Indisputable. You can get through, but when it's continuous and that amount of accumulative load, it's a real stress.